Welcome into episode 1 of the Gramblers podcast. My name is Cody Grant. That's Aaron Graff. Aaron, excited to be doing this with you, man.
It's about time. We've talked about it for quite a while. So
I think been almost like 6 months. We've kind of messed around wanting to do a podcast. So it's good to kind of get back on and talking some sports and some gambling.
yeah, especially a couple states away, I guess, from each other. So Zoom call set it up perfect for us, I guess.
Yep, I'm in Wisconsin. Aaron's out in Iowa. We're recording this on Sunday, May 16th, about 10:48 p.m. NBA playoffs are right around the corner, so we wanted to wait until the seeding all went in. But basically, since this is episode 1, Gramblers podcast, what are we doing? It's going to be a lot of gambling, a lot of sports betting. Aaron and I have been texting back and forth the last couple of years, just talking about our good bets, our bad bets. And basically, we just wanted to put that on screen and kind of record what we talk about and hopefully educate people to become bettors and show you how much fun it is to bet. Because I don't know about you, Aaron, but I have so many friends that love sports. And like every time we go out, every time we hang out, every time we talk, it's all about sports. But every time I bring up sports betting, they're like, no, like I'm scared. Like I can't do that.
Yeah. We've talked about that kind of like as far as it's intimidating almost to approach a sports book for the first time. I mean, I went to the sports book here right by my house with a friend who he's a Bears fan and he wanted to place money on the Bears. And it was like, watching a kid ask a girl out for the first time, like he walks up and he's like, oh, I'd like to place money on the Bears, and they were playing the Chiefs. So it's like, okay, don't say you want to place money on the Bears. Like, you got to take them on the spread, where you can get the extra.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We want to dumb it down, obviously. So,
yeah, for sure. Because like I listen to like now betting has become so mainstream. It's legal in how many states now? Unfortunately, not here in Wisconsin. So I do have to cross the border in Illinois if I do want to make a bet. But it's one of those things where you hear it everywhere. It's like, oh, I want to take the Bears plus 7.5 this weekend. Well, like I think a lot of people hear that and like, what the hell is that? So it's gonna be one of these podcasts where we're gonna do a lot of picks. We're gonna have our picks, of course. We're gonna talk about like all the key things going on in the major sports. A lot of NBA, of course, right now. Some Major League Baseball, NFL season. Once that gets kicked off, you'll learn Aaron loves betting on golf, tennis, and even Russian ping pong from time to time. So that was one of the most fun nights I've ever had, staying up at 2:30 in the morning betting on ping pong. So we'll get into all of that. This first episode, though, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about myself and Aaron, kind of how we met, how we become friends, and kind of our background, and learn a little bit about us, and then kind of go over the NBA playoffs and the PGA Championship too. Is this week too, Aaron? So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I thought my dog wanted to make an appearance here, and now he's just kind of fighting with me here for a little bit. So if you hear any like barks or growls, I promise you I'm not an animal abuser. I love my dog. You will get to meet him at some point. So
there are no dogs harmed during this taping of this podcast.
Exactly.
Well, by the way, what are you drinking tonight? What is that?
I got a classic Blue Moon here. So
okay, where's the orange slice?
We don't need an orange slice here in Iowa, Iowa isn't known for the oranges. So
Gotcha. I'm on my Guinness. You ever have a black and blue?
I don't think I have. No, I've had Guinness for sure.
It's Guinness mixed with Blue Moon.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty good.
Nice.
Anyways, Aaron, how did we meet, man?
Yeah, so funny story. So obviously, you and I, we both worked for Collegiate Wood Bat League. Oh, now dog's squeaking his toy. The DuPage Drones. So we were a startup, basically startup team, new team, expansion team, and you and I were both named assistant general managers. So there was a general manager. There's obviously the owner. There was a potential investor, and kind of like, it looked like, okay, I'm going to throw his toy here. So over or under 10 yards there, that throw. No, I'm just kidding. We're not getting into the bets just yet. So we were both assistant general managers. We basically met at like an event for the team to like try to find host families for players and such. And basically that got stormed out, I'm pretty sure, and should have been a sign of some other things, I guess. But
I did love the title of assistant general manager because, like, wow, like that's my title, assistant GM. I'm going to be scouting players.
yeah,
Nope, you're going to be going to UPS and trying to get them to sponsor a baseball team that nobody's going to come watch.
yeah. It was it was hard, obviously. I know that you didn't want to stay around very long, which is a story on its own, and I'll let you tell that. But basically it ended up being a 22-year-old. I was 22 at the time, and a 24-year-old trying to run like a whole business operation, basically. So I guess I'm playing fetch today on the podcast.
Yeah, the only good thing that came out of that was probably the fact that this podcast is starting because of it. I think I was there for maybe 2 months, and I actually left a job. I was doing radio, and I was doing some sales at that radio job. And I called the guy of the drones, and he offered me a job over the phone. And I was like, all right, let me check this out. Like, it'd be cool to work for a baseball team. I've never done that before.
Yeah.
And it was just terrible. It was not a fun job. The only good thing about it was working in sports. But yeah, so I remember the only thing that would have kept me on was they were going to start a podcast of like interviewing players. I'm like, that's perfect, man. That's right up my alley. I went to school for that. This is what I love to do. And the line that was told to me at the time, where I was failing in sales, that's for sure. I have nothing wrong saying that. But they told me they wanted to make sure the podcast was professional. And then they asked an intern to do it.
Yeah.
So I left. I was like, fuck this.
You took it. See, and I have some disagreement with you.
Michael Jordan meme. I took that personally. I really did. And maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. I took that personally.
There you go. I have some disagreement. I mean, I think that there were a couple other good things in the grand scheme of things. It kind of was a rapidly sinking ship, though. And looking back on it, there's a million things that I'm sure that all of us would do different. You probably would have never taken the job, and
probably not.
But
probably not.
It is kind of a funny story. Like I said, that very first event that I was still in school at Southern Illinois, and I had to drive all the way up to Lyle, Naperville to get to the field, basically, for this event that was supposed to be, kind of like a Kickstarter event. And that's where you and I, we were kind of shooting the shit, and basically thunder and lightning start coming down and the whole complex closed. It was like, cool. I drove like basically about 6 hours one way. I did that drive for nothing,
Yeah.
Which, like, kind of afterward is like, that event didn't seem as important as like an opening night or something. It really didn't seem that important.
There was nobody else there, was there?
There were, there
Five
was
of
like
us?
2 host families, I think, stopped by and said, like,
Yeah.
you know me. And it's like, okay, I'll know you, and I don't know them anymore. So, but
anyways, that's how we met.
Didn't gamble on Thrones games at all. We should have.
We should have. I don't know why. We should have been the bookies for that. That's what we should have done.
We could have got a head start there, but
yeah, because it is legal in Illinois now.
Yeah, but that was also five years ago now. So
right, is it that long ago?
Yeah,
30. Yeah, I'm gonna have a quarter life crisis on the show right now. So, anyways, you live in Iowa now.
Yeah.
How long have you been out there for?
Been out here since 2017, so 4 complete years almost. So.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, obviously you see the Zoom setup. That's how we're going to be doing this podcast. Aaron, unfortunately, will not commute as long as he did for that first drones event to come to my apartment to do this podcast. But
get lightning out anyway, so
no, gotcha. But the nice thing is we're both gambling degenerates, and we want to just make that mainstream. We don't want people to look at gambling the way they look at pro wrestling, which I am also a pro wrestling fan.
So maybe we should also describe, I guess, Gramblers, I guess, how we came about that name.
You came up with the name, and it makes sense. So go ahead. I'll let you describe that.
So we're gamblers. So you can probably make rhyme and say Gramblers rhymes with gamblers. And my last name is Graff, which is G-R-A. And even though his name shows up as Rhodes for some reason, if you can see that, his last name is Grant. So it's G-R-A, G-R-A. You kind of just add that R because we're both Gra. Graff
Yeah.
boys. So
Original name, right?
it fit really well.
It's good. It's good.
It did. So
Yeah.
I like it. I'm proud of it. It's probably my proudest moment, you know.
Well, let's get into some betting. Like when we look at it too, I'm trying to think. So I had a question for you, and I'll give you my answer to this as well.
Sure.
When was the first time that you placed a wager on any sports? Was it fantasy football? Was it NCAA tournament bracket? Were you running the show? Did you get asked by someone? Like, how did you get your start in it?
Yeah. So I just threw the dog toy again. I've always been interested in gambling. I mean, I grew up playing Texas Hold'em since I was probably like 9 years old. Now, granted, I wasn't betting a lot of money. If it was anything, it was a family game, like $2 or whatever. But sports betting, I got into it big when Iowa legalized it, which was, I want to say 2018. It was the year that the Bears and Packers started on Thursday Night Football. So I want to say it was 2018, and that was the first like legal bet I made. I bet on the under, and actually it's kind of funny because some old guy was sitting across the table from me at the sports book, and he was like, "You got to live bet the over, and you got to create this window kind of thing." And I listened to him, so I won the initial bet I made, and then because I listened to this guy, then I lost that bet because I tried to create a window, and we'll get more into that, I'm sure, in the show. I don't dislike window betting by any means, but at that time it was like, I was like, man, that guy's a jerk, you know. So I'd say that's the first legal sports bet I did. I did March Madness pools probably since I was in like 8th grade and beyond, which were $20 pools, but I never invested into like fantasy gambling, because usually when I was doing fantasy sports in high school, I was running the leagues and I was just trying to find, people in my high school who gave enough of a shit about sports to do those. So we never really had any money on it until I got till about college. So, but yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I think the first thing I ever bet on was an NCAA tournament, which is surprising because I am like anti-college basketball, just because of all the people that say it's better than the NBA. They're wrong.
Right.
But I love the NCAA tournament. I love March Madness. And I think the first time I ever bet on that was 6th grade. And I remember holding a lot of money, like when I was like in 7th and 8th grade. Like, I was holding like thousands of dollars, like because we had these large pools with, like over 100, 200 people on them. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of cool. Like, that's my future. I'm going to be a bookie, right? Like, I didn't know it was legal at that time. I was just a kid, but I did that. Then obviously fantasy football, that craze happened. I run fantasy basketball leagues now. I play some fantasy baseball. And then once gambling started becoming like more mainstream, and once it really got its backing and became federally legal, we're still waiting for some states to pass. It just kind of almost like weed in that sense, right? Like, it just became kind of like, okay, like there's not a stigma against it anymore, which there never should have been a stigma against it.
Sure.
So now, funny story, like I say, I always hated soccer, right? Like, I hated soccer. I always thought it was dumb, but I was just being an ignorant American when it came to that conversation. Because of COVID last year, soccer was the only sport on TV. And guess how I got interested in soccer?
Probably betting.
Started betting on games. And then I'm like cheering, like I'm learning the game. Like, it's like a lot of fun. So like betting has gotten me into sports I normally wouldn't watch.
Yeah.
And I'll transition that now to like, I remember texting you months ago at 2:30 in the morning. Like, you're telling me like, bet on this guy. We're playing Russian ping pong. We don't have a TV screen because it's not televised. We're just watching like on a spreadsheet. Like, it's 1-0. It's 2-0. It's 3-1.
Sofa score and flash score were the two big ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked me actually before the show, you said, do you remember any of the names of those guys that we bet on? And I do remember one, because it was one of the worst beats I've ever taken. I basically, with ping pong, I was just typically betting the favorite. It's like, if I beat you at, let's say a casual group of guys, I beat you at ping pong, you beat my friend at ping pong kind of thing. I'm going to beat my friend, the third friend, basically. I'm going to beat him if I beat you and you beat him, but it doesn't work that way with the professionals always. And
It's matchups, man. It's
those
all
guys are
matchups.
good. So yeah, so I remember Dmitry Kolesnikov. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, but basically that guy, I got cooked because and I don't really like to say the amounts I'm betting, but I got up about $900 betting ping pong over the course of like a week. And I was like, this is easy. I can do this full time. This is great. And basically I bet on him. I put like 600 of it on, or no. So I lost like $100 on one, and I was like, okay, like it's going to happen. I'm not small. I'm still up 800. Then I put $200 on the next one, and I lost that. And I was like, dang, these upsets, now they're striking. Well, law of averages. Okay. Those two upsets hit. The favorite's got to win this one. And it was Dmitry Kolesnikov. So I put $600 on him, and I lost basically all 900 over the course of those 3 matches. And I was distraught. That was the first bad beat I ever took gambling. And I was distraught. I was like, what the hell did you just do? And then, so actually, and you mentioned golf earlier, Dustin Johnson won that weekend. And that was when Dustin Johnson like was kind of going through a little bit of a cold streak. So I got good odds on him. I had like plus 2,200 or something like that. I won like $400 back, basically. I don't remember what the bet was. So then I took that 400 and I rolled it over into ping pong, a parlay, which we'll talk about parlays, but I rolled ping pong a parlay that weekend, and I won the first one. That was the one you bet on, and you bet on them separately. And then that second one, our guy was up like 2-1. You got to win 3 sets. And then he lost in the 5th set. He lost the thing, and I lost the parlay, and I was like distraught. That was the worst week I ever had gambling. I learned a lot though. So
yeah, you learn from your failures even in gambling, but you're always going to fail because that's just how the game goes. But so the thing I wanted to focus on today, I think as we go forward with this podcast, each week we're going to focus on a certain type of betting.
Yeah,
you mentioned parlay. We're definitely going to be talking about those. Talk about teasers. Talking about doing prop betting, in-game prop betting, which is one of my favorites to do. But you said something that was interesting to me because of how passionate you were when you talked about it, and that's your disdain for unit betting. So I kind of just want you to kind of explain what unit betting is to the people that don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
And why you just completely stay against it.
I despise it. Yeah. So to dumb it down, I guess, to give a kind of a quick lesson of how betting works. So usually, we kind of talked a little bit about how people like a sports book is intimidating. You see the minus line, -7.5, +7.5. That is basically points. So for NFL, for example, that's probably the most popular sport in America today. Like, let's say the Bears are playing the Packers. Well, the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. Maybe, we'll see. But let's say the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. So basically the Packers are the favorite in that. So you can take them to win outright. Usually it's going to be like -300 or something. What that means is all in relation to 100. When it's a minus sign, basically you have to bet $300 to win 100. Let's say on the flip side, you're betting the Bears, they're going to be probably like +200 or something like that. It's not going to be a true -300 +200 because Vegas still wants to make money. But basically that +200 then is where if you're betting $100, you're going to profit $200 if it hits. So the Vegas kind of comes out with those spreads, which is where they think the game will be. They think the Packers will win by a touchdown. So it might be -7.5 basically. And if you bet -7.5, that means the Packers have to win by at least 8 to cover your bet, basically, to win you that bet. And then those odds are usually like -110, -120, where you have to bet $110 or $120 to win 100. Sorry for rambling. So that's the tricky part. And that stumps a lot of people. A lot of people are, hold on, wait a minute. I mean, I've seen very smart people get confused by that, but that's just the quick kind of rundown anyway. So unit betting basically means that the bettor, me or you or whoever's listening to the podcast, will basically bet the same amount on every single thing. So they see, okay, I like that the Bears, they might lose this game, but they're not going to lose by that full 8 points. I'll bet them +7.5, which is basically points spotted to you. So then let's say, for example, $25 is their units, quote unquote. That means they're going to put $25 on that one bet. The next bet they see, let's say they're going over the NBA, they see the Bulls are playing the Lakers. They see the Lakers are favored by 8 points. They're like, the Lakers are going to smoke the Bulls. I'm going to bet that bet. Then they bet $25 on that. Next bet, kind of thing. So it becomes a pattern where they're betting the exact same amount. I despise that because I think that was kind of something created by Vegas to kind of keep an edge in their house, right? So your betting odds are like minus 110, which means if you're betting $25, you're only winning about $22.50, $23, somewhere in there, depending on where the odds are. So if you bet $25 and you win 22, and then you go to your next bet and you bet that $25 and you lose that bet, you're down $3, right?
Yeah.
So you have to win about 59% of the time or so. Which is,
and the best guys in the world are hitting what, 63, 64%,
something
it's
like
hard.
that.
Yeah,
something like that. So what I like to do is I like to basically just find the bets I really love, and go big on them. Just go big on them. I'm talking, sometimes it's $1,000, sometimes you like it that much where you're just like, I will put basically whatever I can afford to lose on that single bet. And obviously not everybody is that comfortable doing that. It's like, hey, if you're going to a roulette wheel, black or red kind of thing, like, hey, I've seen 15 in a row hit red, I'm confident this one's going to be black, kind of thing. It all depends. But basically my kind of motto is win the big ones. You can bet, you can have your fun. Okay, the Bears, they might cover. I'm not that confident, and I'll slap $25 on that. Meanwhile, I'm over here. I really like this hockey game. I like the Vegas Golden Knights to beat the Colorado Avalanche today. I'm going to put $300 on that kind of thing. I've found a lot more success doing that, just sticking to the ones I really like, and then having my fun on the penny bets or quarter bets, however you want to put it. I mean, but. Well,
and also too, that makes sense. Cause like, if you're doing the unit betting and you're betting the same thing on every single game, like you're going to be wrong. No matter how much you know about sports, there's just so many factors, you're going to be wrong. You can't predict every single outcome. So, and that brings up a great topic we're definitely going to do later on in the podcast, depending on what episode when we come to it, is like what your favorite rules are when betting. Like do you always love taking the home underdog on Monday Night Football? Do you love taking a good team after a bad week? Like I remember last year, I think it was the Packers, and they barely beat Jacksonville. I think they won by a field goal. And then the next week, who did they play? They played the Texans next week. The spread was like 4.5. It was like the Packers are 9 points better than the Texans. Like hammer that game. I think there's a lot of rules that Vegas will do where it's like there's something happens like that. Green Bay just had an off day, and they just put all the points to their opponent, and they're a much better team. And after coming off that close game, they just go out and hammer the opponent. I think they beat them by 20 points, something like that. It was crazy. So that's going to be a fun topic for the future is rules. Definitely want to get your opinion too on parlaying all the money lines, because I've seen a lot of people do that. I have a buddy that texted me sometime during the season last year. He bet on like the 8 highest money line games, parlayed them. All the bets. Chiefs, Bucks, Packers, like all those good teams, and parlayed the money line, won some pretty decent bucks. So this is going to be great. Like that's what I like about the way we're doing this, is just looking at different ways to bet, what makes betting fun. And of course, we're going to give our picks because Aaron, the best league playoffs happen in a few days. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
You're talking about golf, right? I mean, golf playoffs are down the road.
Golf playoff? No, man. I'm talking about the NBA.
Yeah, I like the NBA. I like the NBA.
Dude. So I was looking at just the bracket, and we were talking a little bit before we started this. Like this bracket, I look at it and I get so excited because the amount of storylines coming into the season. Like last year was a lot of fun in the bubble because the Lakers were the favorite, but you also had the Clippers, first time with George and Leonard. You thought they were going to run through, and obviously they got beat by Denver after going up 3-1. It was really cool to see the rise of Jokic and Murray. And I was really pumped for Denver this year, and it sucked that Murray went down to ACL. But then in the East, Miami was a tough team, but nobody expected them to go head-to-head with Milwaukee, and they beat them in 5 games. Giannis, of course, went down with an injury, and then that brought on the whole storyline. Is Giannis going to stay in Milwaukee? Of course, he signs the Supermax. He's going to be here for at least another 5 years. But looking at this bracket, do you want to start with the East or do you want to start with the West?
Oh, let's start with the East. I think that the money is in the West.
Yeah. So really quick with when we go to the Eastern Conference, I have the odds right here to win the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn's the obvious favorite.
Sure.
Right now they're at -115. I do think they do have the best team in the Eastern Conference, arguably the best team in the league. They did not play with Harden tonight. He sat tonight out, but his first game back a couple of nights ago, I think he had 18, 11 assists, 7 boards, something like that. Like, they run with Harden. Like, Harden's the most important player in that team. But the downside on Harden is he can't close in the playoffs. That's always been his, people would take shots on him when he was in Houston. Same thing with Kyrie when he tried to do his own thing in Boston after leaving LeBron. He didn't have a lot of postseason success, but now they have Kevin Durant, who's always been the guy in every team he's been in. So I think that is right to have Brooklyn the favorites. The Sixers +325, the Bucks +350. I think that's about right too, because the Sixers don't have to play in the second round against either team. They don't have to play Milwaukee. They don't have to play Brooklyn. So those two teams will match up in the second round, the Nets and the Bucks. I mean, who do you like to come out of the East? Just from a betting standpoint, like would you take the Nets at -115, or would you look to go a little bit more underdog with the Bucks or the Sixers?
To be honest, I don't love futures betting, which obviously that's this kind of what we're talking about. So if I had to pick one, you're putting me on the spot. I'm probably going to take Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
And the reason being is just I liked them early in the year. I think you get a little bit more value on the pick there. I like taking favorites. I really do. I think that in the grand scheme of things, I think Brooklyn probably will be that team. And why not bet $115 or whatever to win 100 if you think that that's going to be that. Philadelphia, I'd probably put like a, very small, screw it bet on it for fun. I liked him at the beginning of the year. One of my buddies, he's like, yeah, they can't really shoot. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I kind of just picked against them, but here they are in the top seed of the East. I love Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid is great. I mean, if he could stay in shape, I think he'd be legendary status. I don't think he stays in shape as much, but yeah, if I had to take a bet, and it would probably be one of those promo bets that basically the sports book gives to me. They say, you gamble a lot, so here's a free bet. You can pick whoever you think is going to win.
Put that money on Philly.
At that point, I'd probably put it on Philly. If I was putting my own out-of-pocket money, sure, I'd take Brooklyn, but I'd rather just bet them on the spread, like in a game, where I thought they were going to cover. Game 1, okay, they're going against for sure whoever they go against. Obviously, it could be a number of teams, Brooklyn Boston or Washington. I'd probably take them on the spread in game 1 for, and think that, hey, whoever played in that playing game is probably a little bit more tired. So,
yeah, I think the East, I don't know, like I watched Brooklyn this year. I watched a lot of Brooklyn basketball. Their record is not nearly as good with Harden off the floor as it is with him on it. So that's obviously something to watch. It's just the health of the team, but they don't have a lot of depth. That's for sure. They don't really have a big man. They have DeAndre Jordan, who's pretty much washed up, and it really sucked that they had to get rid of Jarrett Allen to bring Harden over to Brooklyn. I still think they are the best team in the Eastern Conference, but I do like the Bucks at +350 just because they do have the reigning 2-time MVP. They made the trade for Drew Holiday, who's really fit in the system well. And Chris Middleton is just a stud. I don't know why there's so many Bucks fans that don't like the guy just because he got him.
Because he's not a max player.
Dude, he is a max player. You know why he's a max player? Because he get paid max money. And I will say this about that contract signing really quick. Is like people were so mad because he's not worth that contract. Like, okay, you can believe that.
Right.
But if you don't pay him, if you don't bring him back and he walks, what's your replacement?
Right.
Like, it's almost like one of those things, you just have to do it. Like, you have to. because there's
Well,
nobody else coming in that's better than Milton.
and I know obviously a max contract in the NBA is probably more money than you or I will ever see combined.
Ever.
But in the grand scheme of things, NBA has that cap for a reason to where, I think that, I mean, there was those off seasons where it's like Timothy Mozgov signs borderline like
4
max.
years, 60 million.
Yeah, there was always like those off seasons where it's like, okay, that was the going rate. So it's like, I mean, he's close enough to where, like you said, you bite that bullet. You don't want to completely ruin Giannis's chances of staying, obviously, as you mentioned, but also competing. Now they can again always use Middleton as a trade piece. So, like, let's say
that's another thing too.
Hey, we can bring in James Harden to our team, kind of thing. Then they can trade Middleton in that. So.
Yeah.
And the money would probably work a little bit easier than, piecing together all those, Jared Allen type players,
Absolutely.
But
for sure. But going back to just the bracket itself, like I was telling you before, I just love the matchups. Do you like the play-in games?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I really don't. Are they exciting? Sure. I'd rather it just, okay, we played a long enough season that, hey, it should be as is. I think that a big thing about basketball is who has the legs to go, that ended up being the Lakers, partially because LeBron got to, sit out for COVID, everybody. So he got some rest. So last year, is a whole different ball game, but you're putting, 1 to, I guess, 3 play-in games potentially. So basically team can, or I guess 1 to 2. Yeah.
1 to 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 to 2 play-in games, basically. That's, half a series right there, to where it's like, okay, you're going to see probably 1s and 2s, I think, run away with their games this year, or their series this year. The ones, even, hey, LeBron is, if he gets in, quote unquote, the 7 or the 8. The other reason I don't love it is, so I'm a Spurs fan. They're at the bottom of the play.
Yeah.
They're
not that better pick, right? Like
I want them to be a lottery team. I want them to move up the lottery. So like, I don't want to root against my team, but they got to win 2 games basically to just get the 8 seed,
to lose to Utah
at best, to lose to Utah. Like, what, I want to get excited now. Granted, this draft class I'm not overly hyped about or anything like that, but at this point, I mean, I'm fine not watching San Antonio Spurs basketball for the rest of the year. I don't have high hopes. Now, hopefully, 10 podcasts from now, we're talking about my Spurs are in the finals. And
right.
But am I going to bet them? No.
No, hell no.
No.
Yeah, no. It's
and
not happening.
That actually brings up a funny point. That was one thing you said. We've been talking about bets for years. And, of course, like, when I think a brand new bettor is always going to be a little naive. They're going to bet on their team. They're going to, see the,
Dude, I once said that Luol Deng is so close to being as good as LeBron James. And trust me, I'm not an idiot when it comes to sports. I was extremely biased.
You have those blinders on.
Yeah, you watch your team and you believe in them so much.
Yeah.
And Luol Deng, I love that guy to death. I think his highest season average was 18 points per game.
Well, close to LeBron's.
He's 7, 8, 9 points off him. Not too bad.
Yeah.
But no, that's what happens too. So that's another topic of discussion. Do you bet with your head or you bet with your heart? Because when you bet with your heart, you usually get burned. You bet with your head, you usually win some money. The play-in games, I did agree with you before I saw the Western Conference matchup, which we'll get to after we ramble on in the Eastern Conference. The 2 playoff games in the Eastern Conference, of course, are going to be the 7-8 seed Boston hosting Washington. The winner of that will go on and face Brooklyn. The loser will play the winner of the Pacers and the Hornets. The only thing I like about this is I would love to see Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. Boston, I really have no interest in them. They're kind of a mess right now. Jaylen Brown's out too, so they're missing their second best player. Tatum is a stud, but he just hasn't figured it out yet, I think, to be consistent. Ben Stevens, I still think is a great. Brad Stevens is still a great coach, but they just have to figure things out. They have to retool that roster. I would love to see Westbrook go at it with Harden, with Kyrie, and with Durant. I don't think they would win a game. I think Brooklyn would sweep them, but it'd be cool just to see 4 more triple doubles from Russ. And then in the other playing game, I would just love to see LaMelo get in because that kid's a stud. That's who I wanted the Bulls to draft in the NBA draft, but he went 3, of course, to Charlotte. It's nice to see Jordan finally make a good pick after years of Adam Morrison and giving Bismack Biyombo money and terrible decisions he's made as the owner. So I think that's the only playing game I'm really excited about is Washington. But once you get into the actual bracket, like it looks nice. Like I'm pumped for the rematch of the Bucks and Heat. Like I think that's gonna be an awesome series. The Heat can shoot. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Herro's finally getting hot. Of course, Butler's a warrior. Bam Adebayo's really transitioned to an excellent offensive player, and he can defend Giannis too. And then that 4-5 matchup, New York and Atlanta. We have a disagreement on that. I think Atlanta's going to run with that series. You think New York's going to run away with that series?
I think New York's going to run away with it. I think Atlanta's one of the worst teams worst playoff teams. No, I have been excited about the Atlanta Hawks of what they're developing. You know, okay, they get Trae Young, they get Clint Capella, they get Kevin Huerter. How do you
Kevin Huerter? Yeah, they got
Kevin Huerter's a bad shooter. Every time I watch him, every time I bet on the Hawks, they are terrible. And you know what they say: good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah.
And the Hawks, I pay attention, kind of stopped betting their games because that was like the one team I couldn't ever figure out. But they were earlier in this year, they were not covering spreads. And I think New York New York had one of my favorite bets of the NBA season. They played Indiana, I think on January 2nd. It was right after the new year, and they were 9-point underdogs, 9.5-point underdogs. And I teased the line, which we'll get into, basically moving the spread to change the odds. I teased the lines to make them favored by 3 points. And that was like plus 500 or something like that. And I put $100 on it and they won by 4. So I just covered and profited $500.
Yeah.
I love the Knicks. Granted, I got burned on the Knicks a couple weeks after that because they lost to the Cavaliers at one point, and I was like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
But I think that New York, I think they're well coached. I think Derrick Rose, being the veteran there, Julius Randle has had a really good year, and they have good youth there too. I think New York runs away with that series, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Am I going to bet it? I don't know.
No. Here's the thing. Like, this has been the thing with Tom Thibodeau teams is he works those guys so hard and he gets them to a level where they're playing 100% throughout the regular season. And then when the playoffs come and the game tightens down, the game slows down, and teams raise their game, the Knicks won't have another level to go to. So that's just always, I love Thibodeau. Like, I love that guy. He can literally win probably 20 games in a season with you and me as his 6th and 7th man.
I don't think that's true.
Okay, you and me as his 9th and 10th man.
Right? I can play great defense. I cannot shoot worth a lick. So,
and I love the story of Derrick Rose. Obviously, all the stuff he's gone through since his time with the Bulls and all the injuries, and now he's actually, I think, a good 6-man candidate. I mean, Jordan Clarkson's going to win it from Utah. That guy's been outrageous, but Rose will get some votes for 6-man of the year. And Atlanta, though, man, like, I just don't see the Knicks being able to keep up with that offense. They have shooters everywhere. And then that trade they made for Capella, I think, just really reinforces their interior defense and their rebounding. But I think that's the only matchup we disagree on, though. I think you have Philly running away, no matter who they play, whether it's Charlotte or Indy. I mean, they're going to beat them. It could be Boston too. So it could be Boston, could be Washington. You could see that happen. I think Brooklyn is going to run away with the first round. And I think the Bucks and Heat will be a good series. I can see Miami taking 2 games. I don't think the Bucks lose to them again.
Yeah, I gotta lean with the Bucks there. I feel like Drew Holiday plays really great D. Bringing him on board, I would, I would pretty much take all the favorites in the East, the top four advance. But the other thing I'll say, so as far as like Atlanta goes, I think Kevin Herter, like I said, he can't really shoot that well. John Collins, Trae Young, I mean, they really got to step up. I think that it basically boils down to, how well they can play. And I'll
Do you
take.
have like, so you told me you bet on the Hawks a few times this year, and you've watched Kevin Herter and he just can't shoot. Like, have you done some Kevin Herter props that he just burned you on, or?
No,
Okay, because I take all losses personal. Like, I will not bet on the Atlanta Falcons ever again.
That's
Like,
what
there's a team.
Colin Cowherd says the same thing. So
Does he? Okay, so I listen to Colin Cowherd.
yeah, he's
But
like, I can't ever figure the.
I have a list of teams I just do not bet on because they've just broken my heart so many times.
Yeah. No, I've never taken any props by him. I don't trust it. I mean, he's a shooting guard, quote unquote.
Why don't you take unders then? Why don't you just bet on Kevin Herter unders?
Because I mean, if you're taking 3-point unders, the line's usually set at like 1.5, 2.5. It's like anybody can hit those. It's like
he can shoot 20 and
I mean, it's like I don't want to touch that. Like you never know what they're gonna. I mean, points, sure, but I mean, usually even his points are set like at like 12, 13, somewhere in those like low tens. That if you said, hey, over under 22 points for, I'd say under every day. But a lot of those times those odds like are only made for people who are taking overs. And you'll still get burned by some. Hey, Luka Doncic, my buddy who's a Mavs fan, he was always betting on Luka over like 2.5 3-pointers, and there were games where he'd hit 2 3-pointers. So
that's the worst too. Yeah,
they're quote unquote your bad beats. So
it's rough.
It takes like 15 more, but I have pretty much the favorites. So
you're taking Brooklyn to win the East then, I'm assuming?
I think technically speaking, I would, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyrie, sure, he's saying like wasn't his top priority, sure, but
he's so talented, it doesn't even have to be his top priority.
I'd say you're gonna see Brooklyn and Philadelphia in the Eastern Finals. So
okay, yeah. So I had the same thing. I got Brooklyn. I have Brooklyn winning the East, going to the NBA Finals. But I do think the most exciting series will be Brooklyn-Milwaukee in the second round. I don't think it will be Brooklyn and Philly. Not that I think Philly's bad. I mean, obviously, Joel Embiid's playing on another level. My only case against Philly has always been Ben Simmons because that guy can't shoot outside 17 feet.
Sure.
And today's NBA, you got to shoot. So we both got Brooklyn on that. I think I would bet Brooklyn minus 115 for sure because it seems like I don't want to say for sure thing because anything can happen in the NBA, but I'm pretty positive Brooklyn's coming out of the East.
It's borderline even money. So
yeah, you take that bet. I mean, they're the best team in the East. There's no doubt about that. To the Western Conference, the play-in games over there, your Spurs, you want them to lose, I'm assuming. And then they're playing Memphis. Nice little matchup. Ja Morant, some Derek. You love Derek White, right?
I don't want to lose to Memphis. Like if it was
What's wrong with Memphis? Well, Jared Jackson's back.
They're a quote unquote rival. Like if it was like the Kings or something like that. Like I don't want to lose to Memphis.
I'm not trying to make you cry here, but didn't Memphis knock out San Antonio one year, like a 7-2 matchup?
8-1, yeah.
Was it 8-1?
Back in 2012, it was like
that was like the Zebo Marcus Saul team, right? With Mike Conley and Tony Allen.
It was like the same year that I think the Bulls and Heat went to the Eastern Conference Finals with Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, the Taj block. I think that was the same year. Was it the
same year? So did Memphis lose to Dallas? That was 2011 then, maybe? I can't remember. I just remember watching that series. I was so shocked because
it was 2011. I was a junior.
Yeah, that was the Spurs. The Spurs a dynasty. They never won back-to-backs. Never.
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking. So I'm a Spurs fan. In 2007, the Spurs won it as a 3 seed, and Dallas was upset by Golden State as the 8-1.
Yeah.
And And then in 2011, so 4 years after, because my best friend, he's a Mavs fan, the Spurs lost 8-1, and then the Dallas went on as the 3 seed and then won. So, and both times they beat LeBron. In 07, the Spurs beat LeBron in Cleveland, and then
Yeah.
obviously Dallas beat
Well,
LeBron.
in 07, the Spurs beat LeBron in just trash. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't even
absolutely,
clear. It was
absolutely.
just it was a trash roster.
I'm not even trying
I think
to.
his second best player was Danielle Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, you got
Or,
Galskis,
yeah, Mo Williams was a nice player,
Yeah,
but that's about it.
they were never going to win that series.
Yeah, I'll watch that game because of Ja. Ja's exciting to me. And then Jaren Jackson, I've always liked him. Can't rebound for shit, but he's shoots threes, blocks shots. And he actually, I heard him in an interview one time. The reason why he's gotten so good at blocking shots because he played a lot of NBA 2K. And I love whenever video games transition to the real world.
Yeah.
But dude, the other matchup that like this is the biggest. I know this has only been the first year they've done playing games, but they continue this trend of doing playing games. I guarantee you this will be the highest rated playing game and it will never be beat. Because you can't, like, how can you replicate LeBron versus Steph Curry in a playing game? Like,
probably won't happen.
Steph Curry, he just clinched scoring champion. I think he's the first player since Michael Jordan to be a scoring champion at age 33 or above. That team is just, they can't win without him. Like, he literally is an MVP candidate. It should go to Jokic. It will go to Jokic, but Curry deserves a lot of praise for that. And then the Lakers, defending champs, LeBron and Anthony Davis, of course, dealing with injuries all season long. They're going to be playing the 7-8 matchup. Like, this game is going to be fun. It's almost like an NFL feel, one game and you're in, one game and you're out. Obviously, the loser gets a chance to win and get into the 8-1 matchup. But I think the one team that'll be watching this very closely is Phoenix, because I don't think Phoenix has a shot at beating the Lakers. I think they have a chance of beating Golden State. So, I mean, what do you think is going to happen in this game?
Strictly the playing game, or
yeah, Lakers and Golden State.
I think that you never want to bet against playoff LeBron.
Yeah.
I watched a decent amount of Golden State this year. Obviously, they're well coached. They still have Steph Curry, who's one of the best players in the game. I don't love them as a team by any means. I think that the Lakers will probably stomp them. I would take the spread, pretty much whatever that is, pretty much whatever Vegas sets that at. I will take the Lakers. And I agree with you. I think Phoenix, that is my exception. I know I said earlier that the 1s and 2s will probably run away with those series. I think that the Lakers would beat Phoenix in probably 5 games. I don't want to bet against playoff LeBron. I think Devin Booker, he's a nice player and all. He's exciting. He's fun to watch. Part of the problem with him is he's not as great of a shooter as everybody thinks he is. Statistically, he's not. A lot of the times that's like a 3-pointer prop I've seen people get burned on, is you just kind of expect, oh, Devin Booker can shoot because he's really good, kind of thing. He's not near Steph Curry, Damian Lillard at shooting, kind of thing. He's probably significantly closer to like Russell Westbrook shooting than he is at those two. So I would agree. I mean, the Chris Paul effect's one thing, but I would think that basically.
Yeah. And DeAndre Ayton is just so green. Like, I want to love that guy because he's just like, he looks like a monster.
Yeah.
But he gets bullied inside. And I think Andre Drummond will bully him all game long.
Yeah.
All series long, I should say. If the Lakers, of course, win. If Lakers play Utah, I still think the Lakers will beat Utah. But the only thing that would shock me is if the Lakers lost to Golden State and then lost to Memphis or San Antonio. That's the only thing that would shock me.
They're not going to lose to Memphis or San Antonio.
No.
They will not.
They may lose to Golden State because I could see Curry going on one of those just Steph Curry games where he's just hitting everything as soon as he passes half court and he ends up with 45, 50 points. I could see that happening. It would surprise me a little bit. I do think the Lakers are the better team. I do think they come away with the win. They go on and play Phoenix in the first round. But it's just, you can't bet against playoff LeBron. I don't care if he's only 70%. You can't bet against playoff LeBron.
No, I would think that the Lakers are probably going to go at least through the normal first round, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
even know.
right. Is
No.
that what we call it now?
I
Is it?
guess, yeah.
Yeah. I
Because
mean, it does say on my tablet here, playoffs round one.
yeah,
So
okay.
yeah.
That's for the playing game. So okay, so
No. It's play in tournament and then
okay.
playoffs round one. So
I still think they get through the first round.
yeah,
I don't know if they beat Utah. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's so hit or miss.
Utah. I'm just not sold on them. Like there's been, I've watched the NBA
Not
for
either.
I've watched it for such a long time. How many times do you see a team that's so good in the regular season that just isn't? They're not the best team. Like remember those Mike Budenholzer Atlanta Hawks teams when they had Al Horford, Jeff Teague, and Kyle Korver, and they were winning 60 games, first seed, and they just didn't have the guys. Like I like Donovan Mitchell. Rudy Gobert is a great defensive center, but when you don't have a firepower and offense that the Lakers have or that Portland can give, Denver can give, like I just don't. I'm just not sold on Utah.
Sure.
I mean, I think if they play Golden State, they beat Golden State in the first round. If they play the Lakers, though, I'm taking the Lakers.
So who do you like coming out of the West then?
That's a good question. So, like, I've been going back and forth with this for a long time. Like, at the start of the season, I liked the Lakers, right? When Denver made that trade for Aaron Gordon, I was like, and watching how he fit and watching a guy like him that's long, athletic, that you can put on a LeBron, you can put on a Kawhi or a Paul George. I was like, man, I like Denver. But then Jamal Murray goes down. Jokic is the best player on that team, but Jamal Murray, he was what, 23, 24 points per game. Now you don't have that in your backcourt. I can't really trust Denver. Portland's always going to be fun to watch. You know, Lillard time is always great. Can't really trust them though, other than Lillard. And then the Clippers, as Barkley said, like they've always just sucked. So I'm not putting any money on the Clippers. I mean, you watch Kawhi. I never felt Kawhi was like he's been the best player on teams. I never looked at him as like a leader though, if that makes sense. And I know that sounds like asinine to say, like he led Toronto to a championship, but like I don't know how I can explain that better. I think he got lucky in Toronto. I mean, Durant went down, Clay went down. They were dealing with a Golden State team that was just tarnished with injuries. Kawhi's a great player, but I just never looked at him as that like culture builder, you know?
As far as matchups go, I actually disagree. I have the Clippers getting to the Western Conference Finals and beating the Lakers partially because you know the Lakers are playing that extra game, and I think that they're gonna, even though that I think that I probably will beat Phoenix in 5, maybe 6 games. I think that the Lakers are going to be a little bit more exhausted, even, you know, battling injuries, et cetera, kind of thing. Kawhi plays LeBron well, and
Yeah, he does. He does.
and the Clippers, this Clippers team has played this Lakers team pretty well. I mean, you saw, I think opening night the last 2 years they've been paired up, and I think the Clippers took both of those games. So this Clippers team plays, you know, I think LeBron partially got lucky that, hey, you know, they played Denver instead of, because Clippers match up with Denver. I think that's a little bit worse for them if Murray's healthy. But I think as far as the matchups go, I think I actually had the Clippers making it all the way to the finals and probably ultimately losing to Brooklyn. But
How do you think Dallas fares with them in the first round? Like I have the Clippers beating Dallas too.
Sure.
Like I have them. I think they're a better team. I think Dallas, other than Luka, I mean it's tough to really look at and you want to trust them. Like Porzingis, I really don't trust in big moments. And then who else do you got? Jalen Brunson,
Tim Hardaway, Boban.
Boban, of course, Boban. How many minutes does he play a game? Maxi Kleba, like you have, I don't know. It's just like I don't think they have enough talent to hang with the Clippers, but like playoff Luka is something to watch. I mean, that shot he hit was that game 4 last year in the first round, that 3-pointer, the game winner he hit. Like that was just so awesome to see. But they just don't have enough firepower to go against the Clippers. But it'll be a fun series. Like that's what I love about the NBA right now is there's stars everywhere. Like you can look at every team and like, okay, this guy's exciting. Like talking about Memphis, the 9th seed, Ja Morant. Portland, of course, Dame, Denver, Jokic, Dallas, Luka, Phoenix, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. I mean, every team has a star now almost. But
the teams I'm not seeing in the West are Houston and maybe OKC, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's, he's on the
hey,
rise.
Houston's got Christian Wood.
Who?
Who else? They got Kelly Olynyk.
They don't have Yao Ming. They don't have Tracy McGrady. They don't have
not anymore. Not anymore.
They don't have Russell Westbrook. They don't have Chris
Paul. Kevin Porter Jr. now is what they're hanging their franchise on.
There we go.
Yeah, I like the Clippers too. And I'm not like the Clippers. It's like one of those teams, like I mentioned the Falcons before. I just don't trust them. Like just that their entire history, their entire culture. Paul George fades in the playoffs. I love regular season Paul George, but he's not been the same postseason George since his Indiana days. And Kawhi obviously is one of the best two-way players in the league. But I think that they do maybe get a little bit lucky this year because of the injuries dealt with LeBron and Anthony Davis. And they have a chance, the way the seeding works, to not meet the Lakers until the Western Conference Finals. And like you said, Lakers are banged up right now. We'll see how much the rest will help LeBron and Davis. I think a fully healthy Lakers team beats the Clippers, but I do think that's going to be the Western Conference matchup that we see.
Gotcha. See, and this is the stuff that I don't really like to bet. So, I like betting. I like betting NBA. Don't get me wrong. I like a lot more like over/under props, things like that.
For sure.
Or totals, over/under totals. But you got any other points on the NBA that you wanna mention before we get into?
Good. I will say though, like definitely our next podcast, once all the spreads are out for games, we're gonna be having some NBA picks on those.
Yeah.
But this is why I love that I'm doing this podcast with you, because we're so different on what we like to bet on.
Yeah.
There's another big event this week. It's the PGA Championship. So I'm just gonna give the floor to you because like I love golf, but I'm not good at betting on it. I just have no feel.
Yeah, I'll be relatively brief. I'll keep it brief. So I run some spreadsheets for PGA betting typically. I haven't done this the whole time I've been betting golf. I've been betting golf for about a year now, but it used to kind of just be more of like a gut feel or hey, this guy's playing well, this guy's not playing well. So the PGA this year is a really long course. It's over 7,600 yards. Which just a couple of weeks ago, Rory McIlroy won a tournament that was about the same distance. So he is the favorite right now. It makes complete sense to me why he's the favorite. I see exactly what Vegas is seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran a spreadsheet. I haven't run my full spreadsheet for the PGA yet. I ran a spreadsheet for that tournament a couple of weeks ago. Basically looked at driving distance. You're going to want a long driver, big hitter off the tee.
Like Bryson?
Like Bryson DeChambeau. So Bryson's number one in driving distance right now. Can he always control it? Not every week. At least at that time, it was Cameron Champ was 2, Rory McIlroy was 3, who won that tournament. There were a couple other guys who were up towards the top that like normally aren't towards the top. Luke List was one of them. I think he was like 5th, 6th in driving distance. Gary Woodland, who misses a lot of cuts, he was like 16th or something like that in driving distance. So I really wasn't surprised by that. I like big drivers. I guess I'm looking heavily towards that tournament that happened a couple weeks ago. Abraham Answer finished 2nd. He surprisingly does well at longer courses. He did well at the Masters last year for the first 3 days anyway. Victor Hovland finished 3rd. I love Victor Hovland. He's not a top driver on tour, but he can chip it really well. His disadvantage is putting. One of the sleepers I like is Joaquin Niemann. I believe his odds were like plus 7,000 to win the tournament. I don't typically take winners in golf necessarily just because
head-to-heads.
Yeah, a lot of head-to-heads. You take one golfer versus another. Okay, this guy does better at long courses. This guy does better at short courses. I will probably look into whoever Joaquin Niemann's head-to-head is because he's kind of a Swiss Army knife in golf. He does well at long courses, does well at short courses. But as far as the spreadsheet goes, there's some value there, especially at plus 7,000 anyway. So does he have weaknesses? Yeah, he's very young. I think he's only like 22 years old or something like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say he's my favorite. I do like Rory again, but Rory, tends to choke in big moments.
What about Dustin Johnson?
I like Dustin Johnson. He hasn't been playing as well, as of late. Just not necessarily bad. Just, you see Dustin Johnson at the end of 2020 and he wins like 4 tournaments, including the Tour Championship. Then he wins the Masters, kind of thing. Like that was a run, and that happens in golf. I mean, even Jordan Spieth is starting to heat up. Maybe we'll see Spieth kind of there. As far as if I had to take a pick, I would probably take Joaquin Niemann as a sleeper. Might bet him like top 5, top 20, something. And then I'll probably look at head to heads. I do kind of like Tony Finau. The dude never wins. He always typically is like second or fifth, somewhere in that window kind of thing. He's long off the tee. His short game is not as good, but I do like Victor Hovland because he did well at this recent tournament. He was kind of in a little bit of a rut before, but last year he really impressed me. The same disadvantage to him as Niemann is he's young, but he's plus 2,200 anyway. So there's some value there too. So if I had to take a guy, like I'm looking here at the DraftKings odds right now, if I had to take one of the favorites that I'd probably bet against, it'd be Daniel Berger. Love Daniel Berger. He typically does well at shorter courses. I think his last like 2 or 3 wins. I don't know how many times he won at least when COVID ended. Then like the next couple of weeks, he did well at those shorter courses. And then he won again at Pebble Beach at the Pebble Beach tournament this year. And those were all, 7,100 yard courses. So it was about 500 yards longer. So it's about a whole nother, par 5 basically added to that. Berger doesn't typically do as well at longer courses. So I would probably bet against him if I was a betting man, and I am. So
that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
Would you take a flyer on Spieth at all? Like I see right now he's at 14-1 odds, but like Spieth is my Falcons of golf.
Sure.
I don't trust him. Like ever since he had that meltdown a few years ago.
Yeah,
like he was the next Tiger Woods, and then just he did everything opposite of Tiger. But he's up there right now, so Vegas sees something in him. Like, do you take a flyer on him or?
So he typically does well at about like those 7,400, those kind of medium courses anyway. Even as of recent, that kind of really. His run right now kind of started at the Waste Management Open in Phoenix, which is a very exciting tournament. A lot of people, that's kind of one of those like higher up, not major tournaments anyway. And he started tearing it up day 3. He was tied for the lead going into the last day. Him and Xander Schauffele actually both kind of choked on that last day. But he even his recent win, about a month ago now, about 7,400 yards. So this course might play a little bit long to him. When Jordan Spieth was winning, he was typically winning with like those crazy long putts or chipping in, from the bunker, crazy stuff that you'll see, which happens in golf. I mean, that's part of how you're going to win, naturally speaking, when you're playing with the best in the world. I personally wouldn't take a flyer on him to win this tournament. I could very easily see him being in the top 15 or so, roughly. You're not going to get great odds. It's not going to be those lottery ticket odds at that. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins, but he's definitely not my favorite personally. So.
Gosh, it makes sense, man. So NBA, we're pretty much on the same page. So for the Clippers, you have them going to the finals. By the way, that's why I didn't ask you. Clippers or Brooklyn to win it?
I said Brooklyn. I kind of briefly mentioned I'd say they would Clippers would ultimately lose to Brooklyn.
Okay, gotcha. And your golf picks one more time, your sleeper?
I like Joaquin Niemann as a sleeper. He's like plus 7,700. So
just take him in head-to-heads all week long?
Well, I don't love the daily head-to-heads just because you
Yeah.
never know, a day like
They could switch them, right? Like,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean you'll see all kinds of crazy stuff happen day to day. But Joaquin Neiman did well in the very first tournament in the year down in Hawaii, which was like 7,596 yards or something like that. He's done well in a couple longer courses. A couple weeks ago, he was only one under par, where Rory won it, I think, at like 10 or 11 under par. So, but I mean, he was still under par. The course was clearly playing tough when a guy wins it 10 under as opposed to 20 under. So, and he hasn't done well at that course before. So I wasn't overly concerned or anything like that. I think he's a good sleeper. I think Victor Hovland, if I was betting a favorite, might just take a flyer on him because I like him. And, he's kind of starting to show that he belongs definitely in the conversation of legends of the game. So
either way, it should be a fun week. NBA playoffs, PGA championship. It's always sports on TV. Probably not the favorite part of my girlfriend be dating me because it's all I do is watch sports. But
that's another bet to make before or after when I get a girlfriend, I guess. Like if you were setting the odds, what would you set the odds at?
You mean like weeks, months, like as far as time?
Oh, I mean, you could set a date on it, and basically I have to bet if it'll happen before or after that kind of thing. Or our listeners could do that.
How about let's do October 17th
of this year?
This year, yeah.
All right, so
5 months.
5 months or so, roughly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to the day, pretty much. Yeah, 5.
Yeah.
I'd take the after, but I can't bet it because I would just wait. If I was actually putting money against you, I would just wait it out because I can kind of control.
It's always more important to win the bet, right?
I'd throw the bet, and the integrity's all messed up. So
yeah. Good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I want to be great. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, hey, let's wrap it up. That was episode 1 of the Gramblers podcast. That's Aaron Graff. I'm Cody Graham. Catch you again next week.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.